Roll call, please.
Billy Maxey, Roland Rowe,
Here.
Glenn Murphy,
Here.
Otis Young,
Here.
Trevor Ousley,
Here.
Connie Cravens. Here.
All right, thank you. We will have citizens' comments now, and Ms. Jill Davila has wanted to speak to the council. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jill Davila, and I live at 418 West Church Street. And a few months ago, I witnessed an extremely dangerous hunting incident within the city limits of Burkesville. A deer was shot within steps of my property line, and two of my neighbors witnessed this happen. One of them isn't here tonight. I'm not sure why. The other one did text me and apologize that she can't make it, but she's ill. After researching a law, which is 139.03, this law was passed on July 23rd in 1984. And I realized, after I researched and read this law, that really nothing legally could be done to protect both my neighbors and myself from this happening again. And that's because the law states that you're allowed to hunt within the city limits using a specific kind of gun and shot, as long as you have permission from the owner and you have more than 5 acres of land. And there are a few places in the city where, in fact, this is so. So, in my opinion, this law is outdated and it needs to be changed. And also, as an aside, I spoke with John Phelps, and he told me that he felt that the law was outdated and needed to be updated. In my opinion, the law needs to be changed so that no hunting is permitted within the city limits. Now, there's a 5-acre property that is right by the hospital. And that means that people could hunt right on the property line of that hospital. No. I'm sorry. Not only are residents' lives put in danger, but also the lives of the public. We have visitors coming into town, well, nobody should get hurt. Many of the land tracts where hunting is permitted are close to areas where the public frequents. Again, I brought up the example of the hospital, and there are other public areas as well. I'm bringing this matter to your attention as a concerned citizen who realizes the importance of changing this law. I've been in touch with several of my neighbors and other citizens of the city who realize how dangerous this situation is. And that's really all I have to say about it. It's just a really bad situation that I'm glad I'm here. At the same time, if I would have been hit, I might not be here right now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davila. We appreciate you coming in and telling us, exactly your feelings on this situation. And that is on our agenda tonight to speak about that law. So, thank you. Okay, so we'll get on to the minutes at this point. I assume everyone's had a chance to go over the minutes, read them. Is there any additions or corrections, anything saw? Anyone saw? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
And discussion? Roll call, please.
Roland Rowe,
Yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Young.
Yes.
Trevor Ousley,
Yes.
Connie Cravens. Yes.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is surplus equipment at the Veterans Center. And let me just explain what's going on there. Across the road here at the Veterans Center, they had some exercise equipment that is in disrepair. I think the pool table was already surplused a few months ago. Now, there's, a couple of treadmills that are obsolete, not working, and then an exercise center which needs repair. And that exercise center, from my opinion, is one of cable and weights and wasn't really an elderly type. I mean, it's a senior center, and it wasn't really an elderly type of exercise equipment to begin with. So, I've agreed with, as long as you agree, council, with Judge Phelps, that we will surplus this equipment, and if we get anything out of that equipment, then the monies will go toward the seniors at the senior center. So what we need is a motion to continue with this item,
I make a motion.
I'll second.
and is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll roll call, please.
Roland Rowe,
Yes.
Glenn Murphy,
Yes.
Otis Young,
Yes.
Trevor Owsley,
Yes.
Connie Cravens.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. The next item on the agenda, we have a pretty full agenda here tonight. The next item on the agenda is a sanitation rate increase. To explain this a little bit, I've talked to a lot of the council members about this, and we have residential customers, we have 485 residential customers in the city, and then we have commercial customers also. I'm not sure, I couldn't count that up, I don't have the number, because the commercial depends on the size of the,
Dumpster.
yes, thank you, the dumpster, and how many times that dumpster is dumped per week, okay? About 4 years ago, well, let me back up. The last time this was raised was 1992. Okay, we're talking 27 years, the last time that this was raised. Every year, it has gone up since then, 1%, and that's just something that's built in to try to take care of the inflation that's going on for our costs. Because transfer fees go up, everything goes up, gas goes up, you know. So, in 1992, they raised the rate 12% because the tipping fees at the transfer station went up 12%. And by statute, sanitation cannot operate to make a profit. Sanitation is sanitation, water, and I think the 911 is things that you operate to stay even and supply the citizens with this. So, here are some numbers here on this. About 15, 18 years ago, we had 2 CDs that was worth over, that had over $200,000 in the sanitation fund. Since then, in the last few years, we've bought 1 garbage truck that we paid for out of that. And then we've also bought another garbage truck and used some of the money out of one of the CDs, and we're making payments on the rest of that. So at this point, we only have a little over $40,000 in a CD for the sanitation. Our fund goes down every year, and it has been for years. So we lost $10,000, almost $11,000 last year in our checking, in our account, okay, our financial account in this department. The year before was $15,000, and a couple of years before that, we lost over $20,000 each year in the sanitation fund. Okay, and that's because things went up more than this 1%. You know, it's been 27 years since we've had a increase in rates. So, if, you know, I did some number crunching, and if we went up 5% across the board with residential and commercial, that would increase the cost to the residential customers from $13.91 per month to $14.61. That's a 5% increase, okay, which is 70 cents per month. It's getting up, it's still under the $15, I think, that Morrison's charges the county to pick up garbage for them. So at a 5% increase, that would increase our income $11,169.72, okay, which would get us back, if it continues on this losing 10,000, you know, it's a fluctuating thing there, but Last year, we lost about $11,000, so that would get us back to about even. And then we have to see where that 1%, if it's gonna keep up with it again. But here's the thing, well, we're losing money continuously, and that account will end up, there'll be nothing there for us. And again, this is not to make a profit, this is just to keep the service running. There's my explanation for that. And what we need, before we have a discussion, we need a motion to vote on this. So if somebody would like to make a motion to vote on it, and then someone seconds, then we can have a discussion.
I'll make the motion.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now, discussion. Is there discussion?
So right now, we're losing $10,700 per year.
Yes, that was last year.
Last year.
The year before was 15,000. We don't have a year looking back over the last 20 years where we made money or we broke even. Everything has been a loss. And again, that's because, you know, we shouldn't have a loss. We should be breaking about even on this. As far as business-wise, it goes. You know, you can't have a loss every year. And, you know, this account is going down quickly.
So is this 5% on top of a 1%, so is that gonna be a 6% increase, or is that just gonna be a straight 5%?
The 1% is set by ordinance, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's gonna be a 6% increase?
This year, yes.
Okay.
But then you get a 1%, there's a 1% increase every year.
Right,
And,
so like cost of living type stuff, I understand that, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, it doesn't include the 1%. That, the way I figured that up was just a 5% for each customer. And I did that a few different ways, just so you know. I didn't just throw a 5% out there and see what's going on. I had a lower rate for commercial and a higher rate for residential. Then I had a lower rate for residential and a higher rate for commercial. And I figured them up different ways to try to get us to about $10,000, $11,000 for the year. Just
So-
to get us back to even.
So, I know one time when Hoy was doing sanitation, he had said something about limiting it to X number of bags, like it once was, and everything had to be in a bag,
Right.
okay? And that, then he would do it 2 months later or
Right.
something. Is that a reason that, does that have anything to do with the amount? I mean, when you go dump it, does it cost more the more you have, or
Yeah, it goes by weight.
it goes by weight?
Yeah, and it's been about the same. We've come up the last 2-3 years and the rate hasn't increased any. I mean, we might have a little more for as the weight wise, but their price has basically been the same, you know, for last year. It hasn't, their price.
That, it hasn't went up, but what I'm saying is, the amount of trash that we're taking has
If
went
it was
up.
less, if it was limited to the 6 bags, is what you're saying,
Yeah.
would it save us money?
Right,
Less weight, less taking cost and
Yeah,
everything.
less weight, you know. It's hard to tell because we have so much loose right now.
That's what I'm
Not-
saying, yeah.
Not anything, I don't, per se, couldn't hardly tell you what we actually average 6 bags per residential customer. I don't know how you figure that because we don't have any bags.
Right.
cause I know most town, cities, it has to be bagged, but they won't,
Right.
you know.
And that actually, last year, I think when we were talking about this.
Right,
last year
right, boy.
before that surprised me that.
Yeah,
It
I
just
always,
surprised me
I
that-
always make sure everything was in a bag, you know.
So, you know, we can look at this another month if you want to, and try to crunch some numbers on weight and see if, but, you know, that will be limiting, again, that's another thing here, to
And
where
then-
we're going to limit the customer, to so many bags, you know, per week.
And then you're gonna up the amount they're paying, so, you know, that's sort of a double-edged sword, I think. So we're gonna cut, you know,
But that's
most
what I'm saying,
families
if
won't
you
have
go-
over 3 of those 30-gallon bags, so if you put in a
Right.
30-gallon bag, you're not, you
Right,
know,
exactly.
should
But
not.
that's what I'm saying, is if we didn't do an increase, and we looked at just doing that, you know, then you're still putting a little something on the customer, they're saying you cannot have more than this. And then they're gonna have to bag it all and make sure, and I've got no problem with that. I mean, it's up to you guys, ladies.
Why don't we fix it where it will have to be in a bag before we stick it up?
Okay, we can do that. That, you know, that, I have
That
no
will-
problem with that at all. Well, all I'm doing is looking to see, and this is why we have city council here, okay? That, all I'm looking to see is how we can stop the flow of money going down the drain every year. So yeah, let's do that. Let's, if you want to, if someone wants to make a motion to that effect, that we limit, we can start that right now. David? Yes? And then we can get the word out that everything has to be bagged, and you can only have 6 bags. And like you say, if you get a big bag, you could fit a lot into a big bag. So 6 bags should not be a problem for most households, I don't think. So if you want to do that, that's quite all right, yes, ma'am?
This will have to be set in ordinance, correct?
That's right, it would be have separate ordinance. So, yes.
Would that not be in the, trash ordinance? So they just have to amend it once if they were to change the price?
Right,
and
amend it.
So we would amend this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, so, yes,
If, say somebody had a water line break, okay, and he had more than 6 bags, you know, if he can't put out 6, he'll have to throw the other 3 over the hill. I mean,
Right.
could they call and say, look, I've had a problem at the house, or, you know, I've got extra,
right,
and,
right.
I don't know. Or-
David, how would we handle that? Is,
Because if you put a limit on, some of them will be throwing it over the hill, if you're in the county, have to be picking it up.
Right. Well, it's kind of one of them for me, and I don't want to be negative with it. If you open it up, then you may have a lot of people, not just saying what you're saying, they just have an emergency, yes, I see that.
I think we,
Where the county right now doesn't have mandatory pickup, sometimes we're getting some more garbage.
some overflow from the county coming in?
Yeah, we really,
Yeah, no,
I'm
they
pretty
really-
sure that that's actually happening to us. And, you know, if you have that, I mean, it's not gonna be every week where we're having to pick up 8 or 10 bags of just one resident. I don't personally see that being a problem. But it's like,
You know, it won't happen
Mr.
very
Burke said
often.
there, most houses in Burkesville are probably gonna be less than 6, more than likely. If there isn't that, it's gonna be less than 6, most of our moving part.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
Well, if you have a good neighbor, he will let you put 2 or 3 bags over.
Okay, so, we would need to do this by ordinance, and if the council would, like to do this, I think we need to, have a motion on bringing this, to an ordinance for the first reading for next month. So, if that is what the council would like to do, someone can make a motion, and then we can go from there.
Excuse me, I think there's already a motion on the floor.
Motion
For discussion was.
Yes, for discussion.
A motion for
So,
discussion.
so we can, right, so we can amend that motion to include this, correct? That motion could be amended, okay, so,
Well, you're doing right now part of the discussion.
right,
That's an element of the discussion, so you don't need to make a motion on it. It's just the motion to amend the ordinance is all that you need.
right, right. So, that's where we're at, is a motion to amend the ordinance.
But a question that I have is, you all need to figure out when you want to address if there's a rate change, because it's in that same ordinance, so what you'll wind up doing is, you're gonna amend the same ordinance within a couple of months of each other, and you'll still have to have 2 readings of it.
Okay, thank you, yes. Okay, so, how about this? Next meeting, we'll have all this lined out to do what you guys, I think, is that, we're still in discussion here. Is that what you guys would like to do, you folks? Because if we can do that, then we'll just wait till next month, and we will, go with this. Is that- Yes,
I make the motion.
thank you.
Second.
And roll call on that, please.
Roland Rowe,
yes,
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Young.
Yes.
Trevor Owsley.
Yes.
Lonnie Kravitz, yes.
All right, thank you all very much. That was a very good discussion on this issue. Now, the next item on the agenda is the law regarding the discharge of firearms in the city limits. Again, we will need to have, I think everyone, city council, did you get a copy of the city ordinance on that? City ordinance, 1984-8, Ms. Davila, had, spoke about that at the beginning. I'm sorry, ma'am.
I have extra copies if anybody needs.
Thank you. We would actually, to discuss this, we need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Now, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, now, discussion. That's who would like to go first on this. Is anyone got a thought on this law that she's talking about? You know, I can tell you, she is correct. There are different places in town within the city limits that you can shoot a shotgun, not using a slug, correct? I think that's what it says. Shooting a shotgun with scatter shot, so it says scatter shot. And that, you know, this was 1984, the ordinance was out there. So there are a lot of places. Where she lives backs up to, you know, there's a fence right behind her house and everyone else on that side of Church Street. At one point it goes up, and that's where this occurred. There are places around, I think there's some Judd property that there's a lot of woods. Keene property, that's a lot of woods. And then you go across the river over here, and there's a lot of property that goes all the way over to 1880, those hills over there, that is included in the city limits. So, you know, I don't know, you know, just to throw that out there for you folks.
How
Yes,
far
ma'am. Yes, Ms. Collins.
Would it be possible that you can't shoot within so many yards of someone's home?
I think we could probably amend that, yes.
I
We
mean,
could amend the
I
ordinance
can
to do that.
understand that they would want to keep their rights to hunt if they have enough land and all that, but not if it's close to
Right,
homes, I mean.
right.
To me, there's a big
Homes
difference.
and public places.
Ma'am, I'm
so
sorry.
it includes
The,
hospital.
the, citizens' comments, I'm sorry, Mr. Gill, I like you, Jill, but, citizens can't just speak up, and this is city business now, okay? The citizens you had your time to speak during the citizen comments.
To me, there's a difference up here on Church Street, between Church Street and the hospital, than there is over here across the river
Yes.
on 1880.
Yes,
You know, because of the situation.
yes, I agree.
You know, I think there's a big difference there. You know, you're shooting there at the hospital, you know.
Right. And, I agree with Ms. Connie's,
So many feet, yeah,
Yes.
or yards, or, yeah,
within so many yards of residence.
yeah.
I was looking up a lot of places that have this, they have a restriction like within 150 yards of a residence, so that might be an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that, yes, Otis?
The deer rifles, well, 200 or 300 yards is nothing for one of them.
Right,
I mean, from here to the river,
right,
they're dangerous.
yes,
The deer rifle.
there,
So,
yes.
I mean,
But
who's to say how far one, I mean,
right, but here's the thing, I think, Otis, is, this says a shotgun with scatter shot.
Right, you can't.
The deer rifle was against the law to be shot.
that was to start with.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
so as long as that law is upheld and no one shoots a rifle, then, you know, I think that the 150 yards with a scatter
Okay.
shot, did you see what we're saying? I think that would work.
All right.
So that's up to you folks, if you'd like to amend this ordinance to include the wording, how would you word that?
You could just add there, like a semicolon, so long as it's not within 150 yards of a residence or
business.
business.
Right, yeah. And if someone would like to make a motion to that effect, we can amend this ordinance. Motion, is there a second? Second, roll call, please.
Weldon Rowe,
Yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Shannon.
Yes.
Trevor Owsley.
Yes.
Connie Cravens. Yes.
Thank you all very much. Ms. DeVille, I don't know if you understood, could you hear everyone? Okay, what we have done is we have, they have voted to amend this ordinance to where you cannot shoot a shotgun, within 150 yards of a residence or business. So that would take it way away from everyone's house. And I hope that's.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And you can, we've got this part done, you can hang out for the rest of the meeting if you would like, or you're welcome to go if you have somewhere to go. But you're more than welcome to stay. Yes, ma'am. All right. Next, ordinance on nepotism. We started this a long time ago, a few months ago. And, you know, to be frank with everyone, and I think that the way it was presented to begin with months ago was not the best way to present this, okay? It wasn't explained, it was just kind of thrown out there, and I would like to explain it just a little bit. Coach Mack deals with the Southern Kentucky softball tournament every year. He runs that, helps run that tournament, and Coach Mack, help me out. You run the concession stand.
We sell drinks and t-shirts, and then we run the gate fee.
Right.
That's what the cities, that's
Right.
those three
And you-
divisions that they have.
And your softball, you have softball coaches,
We
but
have-
people throw softballs back in.
Three individuals that actually change the softball for us. yes.
Right, okay. So, what has happened in the past was that he had a daughter that worked, I believe. But then it was brought up that our nepotism policy only said family member and didn't really give a good description of what a family member was. But it excluded, since it's family member, that could be any family member, okay? And that excluded his daughter from working, which in turn, we had another city employee that worked and actually accrued some overtime. So it would have been a lot cheaper just to do it the way it had been done. But to clear all this up, and I don't know if you've ever seen in the paper to where there's been an audit of a city clerk's office, county clerk's office. There's always a problem here with separation of duties because of the small community that we're in. And there's just not enough people, and that's the way that the KLC explained this to me, is that if you're from a small town, you know, you're gonna have a relative that is, you know, if you're one of us, you're gonna have a relative that's working somewhere in the city most likely, or will apply at some point. So that's kind of the way I see this. So we changed the wording from just family member to immediate family member with a defined definition here. It says it means the officer's or employee's spouse, sibling, parent, or an unemancipated child residing in the officer's or employee's household, or a person claimed by the officer or employee of the officer's or employee's spouse as a dependent for tax purposes. And I think that should clear up, who can work, and they're still in there, you can't work under someone at times, and, you know, it's all spelled out here in the, standards of conduct and code of ethics. So, if someone would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
And a second,
I'll second.
and discussion on this. Roll call, please.
Weldon Rowe,
Yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Shannon.
Yes.
Trevor Owsley.
Yes.
Connie Cravens. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Next up on the agenda, we're getting close here, folks. Wasn't quite as fast this month as it was last month. Next up on the agenda is, we're starting to work on the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, which starts July the 1st. Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay, I thought you said something for me. Okay, so, to do that, to work on this budget, there are certain things that we need to include in that budget. One of the things is every year, the city council votes on, the cost of living raise for employees of the city. And what we have given to the council is a list of departments, what each, if there was a raise, what each raise would cost that department in 25, 35, and 50-cent increments. So, and then on the very first page of that, administration, let's see, where it says FY 2019, 2020, there's a total amount for the fiscal year. And a 25-cent raise, and this is across the board for all city employees. As, you know, just like the 1% that we add to some of the utilities every year, this is to combat inflation against your pocketbooks a little bit. So 25-cent raise across the board would add $10,608 to the budget. 35-cent raise would add $16,536, and a 50-cent raise would add $22,880 to our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Again, we're doing this now, even though this is February, because we have to get this budget set, and it of course has to have a couple of readings before the end of June. Okay, so we're actually getting pretty close here to starting for you guys to look at the budget. So, do I have a motion to discuss this, is what we will be doing here. A motion to bring this to the
I'll make a
floor.
motion.
First, Otis,
Second.
and we have a second. So now discussion. Hold on just 1 second. Let's get the council discussion first, and then we'll get a department head over here.
What was last year's rate?
What was last year's?
It's 50, it was 50, it's 50.
35.
It's 50
No,
year before.
it was 50 the year before, I think you're right. I think it was 50 the year before, and then it was 35 last year.
Okay.
I think that's what it was. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. The employees over there probably remember. Doug, would you like to? Yes.
What happened to the percentage raises?
Well, the percentage raises, you know, that stopped a few years ago. Why? Because it was sort of unfair to the people who make $20 an hour or the people who make $10 an hour.
That's the reason for it. Why give the same raise to somebody that's been here for 25 years and somebody's been here 6 months?
Well, you know, the percentage rate, I still don't see how the percentage raise is better. It may not be as good for the person making the $20 an hour, but overall, I think as an average, that's just me. Overall, I would think that, the raise, you know.
Well, I wish everybody here made $20 an hour, but Mayor Smith started the percentage raise to reward the ones that were staying and stayed long enough and let the other ones come up to that.
Yeah.
And then it turned into just a straight across the board, which for them it's great, for the rest of us it's a slap in the face.
Well, I don't think it's a slap in the face. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't call it a slap in the face if I was getting a raise. A raise is a raise. It may not be as much of a raise. But as far as I would be concerned, I think, hey, at least I'm getting, it's a cost of living raise. It's not a
That's what-
evaluation type merit raise, right? It's a cost of living raise. So I think that's different than a merit raise would be. Because then we're looking, I'm sorry. Well, a merit raise, we're looking and evaluating your job performance and all that, and then you get a raise for that. But as far as a cost of living raise, I can't see how that would be, you know, that's just my opinion, Doug.
I think, if I may,
Yes.
I think what Doug's trying to say, or what, I mean, he spoke fine, I'm not trying to speak for him. Okay, it's like, we started out, or Doug started out making like $5. And so then it took him 10, 15 years to get to making what we start people out at.
Right.
And what it does, I don't care, I'm not gonna complain about the raise, it's a penny, I'll take it, you know. It just keeps a little cushion between the guy that's been working for 25 years and the guy that just started, you know, cause he started out at $11 or whatever it is, It took, that's what I said.
Right.
But I understand kind of, that was a lot.
Right,
But
exactly.
You know what I mean? That's the issue, more than Doug deserves more than the other guy.
Right.
Because, and as he gets his increases, since he started, he's making $15 an hour in 3 years, where it took me 16 years, or, you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, but it's still at the same increment per employee. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
I mean, it's still, if it's 50 cents, you're still getting, nobody else is getting more per hour than anybody else.
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand.
right,
I was just trying to
Right.
clarify that a little bit.
right. You were gonna say something?
Well, I was gonna address, I know we've run into this a couple of times with retirement too. There's some issues about the way raises are structured, because if we don't follow, and it even goes in with merit raises, where we've in the past have set percentage rate for merit raises, the city has been penalized because there was a law that was passed on retirements that if you couldn't give specific justifications and show certification and everything to back up those raises, then the city had to pay a penalty. And we fought that battle a couple of different hearings a few years ago.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that's 10% every 5 years. So, I mean, if you come in and you're starting out at $11, starting out, say $10, just to make it easy. And right, if you don't meet all the criteria for getting that raise, you can only raise it $1 over 5 years. Yeah, there are certain criteria, and the city has been penalized on that. But again, to me, this is not a merit type thing that we're looking at. It's not an evaluation of the job. To me, it's hey, everything went up this year. Cost of milk, you live in it here in town, we know what we're talking about, right? The cost of milk, the cost of bread, the cost of everything has gone up. So I don't think it's for me again, Doug, I don't see it as a percentage type thing. I see it as a cost of living thing. You understand? I know you don't agree with it, but, So, council. You guys have anything to add to this
I
discussion?
remember a few years back that we didn't even get a raise, several years ago when I was employed with the city. And I think, the cost of living, to me, is fair for everybody. Because everybody starts out higher than they did years ago.
Anyone else?
Well, since I've been on the council, there was times that we didn't give a raise. I mean,
The cost of living rates?
cost of living raise.
Right.
When they done the percentages, what was the percent?
Well, it varied 2, 3, 5%, whatever.
Because that was before me, United Ways worked for the city, that's seasonal, so it didn't matter.
Yes.
It's just like each one of us go to the grocery store, they don't say, oh, you're a 5% or you're a 2%, they charge you whatever's on the shelf. I mean, it's everybody, even who's the low totem pole or top.
Anything else from council? All right, we've had our discussion. Now, we'd like to, let's see how we'll do this now. Since we've made a motion and we've had our discussion, we need to discuss how much, if at all, you'd like to get the cost of living raise. Because the numbers are in front of you.
How is the budget? How does everything look? I mean, before
Well, I
we
mean, it's
depend
all-
on you vote on a raise and then you're in the red, that don't make a whole lot of sense to me, but.
Now, on the sanitation, we've already
Right.
discussed what we have to do there. And like you were talking about the sanitation, can I go ahead and explain
Yes,
something?
please.
David, of course, has not been put in sanitation, which, I mean, he's in different departments and should be spread around, which he's not because of the sanitation needs the money, so, that part. being said, the rest of it overall is in good shape. And I mean, we do have CDs in the general fund and water.
And we still are in good financial shape.
Yeah, overall, we're still good
But-
financial.
Right. And like she said, David is out of Parks, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm paying you for it.
Yes. Or that number
Right,
would be
I
a lot
understand.
higher for the
Yeah,
sanitation.
right, I understand.
Yes.
I'd hate to do a lot and then people see that we raised the rates, they think we just give them a great big raise just for, take care of the increase on them. Or rates.
So would you like to make a motion to?
I don't know, somebody else make a motion. I don't know how much to give, we'll say it.
Anyone? We're going to need to decide one thing or another at this point. We need to either decide not give a cost of living raise, or to give one of the, cost of living raises that's on this sheet.
I think 35 cents is fair myself. I mean, you know, I'd like to give them more, because I know how they work, you know.
Right.
You're out in the middle of the night, nobody, when I'm home in bed, and they're digging in ditches and stuff, you know. There's a big difference there. I mean, I'll make a motion for 35 cents, if anybody wants to say.
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call, please.
Carmen Rowe,
Yes,
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Thomas Shannon,
Yes.
Trevor Owsley,
Yes.
Connie Craigs.
Thank you all. This has not been the easy meeting that we had last week, or last month. Now, the next thing that we have updated our policy and procedure manual. All of you have had this for a week to be able to go over. And we strive to let you know that if you have any questions, that you can come to City Hall at any time and ask me or Brenda or Marquita or any department head or whatever needs, anybody that can answer your questions. The policies and procedures hadn't been updated in over 30 years. So there were some things in there that needed to be changed, and all of you have had a chance. You saw anything that was changed was strike through, and then in bold, the changes were made. So, would someone like to make a motion to accept the new policy and procedures?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
And discussion on the new policy and procedures.
So are these not done yearly? They don't have to be done yearly?
That should be done at least twice a year. I mean,
Every 2 years.
Every
Right.
2 years.
Because in the school system, and we've got bikes, they was, yeah, they was yearly.
Right, and
Yearly.
it's kind of surprising that I think our policy and procedures haven't been updated in over 30 years, myself. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Carmen Rowe,
yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Shannon.
Yes.
Trevor Owsley.
Yes.
Connie Craigs.
Yes.
Thank you all again. Okay, we're getting to the home stretch here, folks. We have a second reading of City Ordinance number 2019-1. First reading was last month, of course, and this is an ordinance amending the City of Burkesville Ordinance number 1993-1 as to correcting the official map of zoning districts as revised April of 2018 to reflect the correct zoning boundaries as adopted February 18, 1993. So do we have a motion to accept this ordinance?
Make a motion.
Second,
Discussion
Ferguson,
and roll call, please.
Carmen Rowe,
yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Shannon.
Yes.
Trevor Owsley.
Yes.
Connie Craigs.
Yes.
Okay, there was one other thing, I think, this was in their agenda, or in their packet this month, correct?
No.
Did you put that in there?
No.
That was, okay, I thought you did. The employer contribution rates goes up every year for our CERS retirement. And we usually get a good explanation of that from our auditor. and he explains how much it's costing us more this year than it did last year. Okay, we know that the curves that with K, I don't wanna get into politics of it, but, you know, there's some problems there with the Kentucky retirement system, and I think we all know that. The CERS is the county, and it's going up. And this year, the non-hazardous is going up 2.58%, and the hazardous is going up 4.24%. So just so you know, that's out there, you know, I actually don't feel that bad. I feel pretty good that it's only 2.5% and 4.25%, because it could be a lot more. So that's just for your information there, and of course, we'll get into all that, within the budget. And there's only a couple more things I would like to say before I open it up for new business from you guys. There are 2 publications that I am required as the mayor to provide to the city council members within 60 days of you taking office. And I don't think we had this done before, but this is it's your duty under the law and managing public records. And so this is for you folks to take one of these. I've already filled out everything. All you have to do is we need a proof of receipt that you've got this. Please read these. I know it's boring stuff. Please read it, because I mean, you know, managing public records, open records, it's all important to us, okay? So, when we finish up here, I'll just give each one of you this. You can sign that you received it, and then you can keep the packet, and I'll take the other. And just a couple other things that you might have noticed, and it's hard to notice with the water as high as it is these days at the river, but there has been a handicap sign placed at the riverboat ramp in a spot that is I think a good spot, right next to the ramp, right before you get down to it, so it won't impede people trying to back their trailers up into the river. It's before you even get to that spot. So I think that'll be all right, and I hope that it's used correctly. We've been fixing a few potholes around town. Of course, spring's gonna open that up to a lot more work. And we've replaced the street bulbs with LEDs around the square, which not only make it safer for everyone, I think, especially people crossing the street at night, to being able to see cars better, and it will save us money in the long run. And so as street lights go out around town, when they replace them, it's all LED now. So, and I'm actually looking for a grant that would help us replace every street light in town and just get them all changed over, because as you know, LED bulbs will last us a lot longer and use less electricity. So, at this point, I'd like to open it up to the city council for any new business that you'd like to discuss. Yes.
Years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when I was over building zone, I asked them to fix a letter for each employee to read. You can see anybody building, putting a building in, digging a hole, tell City Hall, because we've ended up with buildings in the front yard, too close to the line, garages in front of the house, you know. Greg and I go ride the street every day, and if everybody, all employees would look and see, and then tell Brenda and Greg to go check it, you know, if Connie's are digging a hole, go see what she's digging for.
Right.
And because our building zone has got way out of hand.
I agree, and we have to get all that in line. And I agree that if an employee sees something that they should tell us. I don't know about making them sign something that they do, but I think it would be a good encouragement. We could encourage them that, because that's not their job, is to go out and look for stuff. But if they do see something, right, they can tell us, and I think that we could encourage that. And I'm planning on having a meeting with all the employees of the city at some point in the near future, and I think that's one thing that we'll point out at that meeting. So, I don't know how much further you want to go with that.
Just as long as we know about it, it's
Yes.
fine, yeah.
Yes.
Before they get it done, but I don't know where we can legally say, well, you put it here, and it says you can't, where we can make them move it or what.
Right. Right. And, me and you have talked about that, and, you know, at this point, it's hard to go back now because, you know, it's a new administration, and it's hard for me to say, you know, Greg, go out here and tell these people that they've got to move that little building that's been sitting there for 3 years. You know, we're in a spot. And, so I think, you know, we can't do anything that was, I think all that is pretty much grandfathered in. And I don't think that we can get around that fact. So everything in the back, in the past there, we can't do anything about. But everything going forward, everybody needs to know that everything needs to be, you gotta get your building permits, you have to get your zoning, everything needs to be validated. And that's where we're at this point. But I agree, and that, like I say, I plan on bringing that up in the meeting, for all employees to keep an eye out and let us know.
And I got one other thing.
Yes.
And David Mack, is there any way we can get those lines painted down there going into the Pizza Hut? You right and left turning lane, because since IGA's down there, people from out of town there.
You're talking about King Street up
Yeah,
at the top.
if you're going down the hill,
We got that machine like behind the fall filters and they make paint actually.
maybe go down the lake Sunday and block it off, because I was gonna turn right, and the lady in the
She didn't know where
straight
she
on,
was.
she didn't know where she's at, because you couldn't even see the lines.
Right.
Somebody can get it.
So maybe we can get that taken care of?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Otis?
Yes. On the one-lane street, Ferguson Street.
Yes.
One way,
Yes.
guy lives up there, he comes out the way he's supposed to, but he needs people going up the wrong way. He
Yes.
back up in front of somebody. And he would like, if he could, put a do not enter sign on the lower end of it down next to the ballpark, down there next to where you go into the
Right,
grounds. Do not enter, that might help some of
So
it.
there is, at that point, I think there's a one-way sign,
There's a
correct?
one-way sign.
Right, and is there at, like Brown's back entrance or back exit or whatever? So what you're saying is put one up next to it or something, or somewhere where
Put
people
it right on
can
the
see?
same,
Right,
right on the same pole.
yeah, we do that?
Do not enter.
Yes. Yeah, we can do that. Thank you. Anyone else? Council good? All right. Thank you folks very much, and I know that this was a meeting that took on some serious stuff, a lot more than last month. So I appreciate everyone. I appreciate your service to the people of Burkesville, and I look forward to seeing you next month. If someone would like to make a motion to adjourn,
Motion.
and roll call?
Roland Rowe,
Yes.
Glenn Murphy.
Yes.
Otis Jones.
Yes.
Trevor Alford.
Yes.
Donna Craig. Yes.
And